When I was 18, I was supposed to be super energetic, looking amazing. I was supposed to have huge, just incredible plans for my life. But in reality, everything hurt. I looked like crap. And yeah, there was sports and activity and all that, but honestly, it was a complete mess. I had to put it mildly, quite a bit of extra fat. I gained weight up to 72 kilograms when normally I was around 50 to 55 at that age, you know? I didn't know how to lose weight, and my back hurt like crazy. And then on top of that, I somehow managed to get pregnant. I gained even more weight. I felt like a total wreck, honestly. But now I've given birth to 5 children. I'm full of energy. I'm constantly traveling, coming up with crazy ideas, setting goals, making things happen. Look, I have an amazing body. I mean, abs, a flat stomach, nothing extra, slim legs, no cellulite at all. And all of this, well, all of this is on a grand scale. In 15 years, I really figured out in detail how the female body works, how the female organism functions, and how to make sure you feel great and look absolutely amazing. I got my higher education already, fully aware of all this at a conscious age. Actually, that was my 2nd degree. When I decided to study how the body works, simply to save myself from the sheer horror that was happening to my own body. So now, watch this video to understand and learn how to look better after having children and to feel so much better than you did before giving birth, even better than at 18. Let me briefly explain how the body works in general and what happens to a woman during pregnancy. If we just recall basic anatomy, we'll see the anatomical structure, right? There are little bones, a kind of skeleton, and all these bones are connected by ligaments. So that's the next structure after the bones. Ligaments are like ropes. They are a rigid structure that prevents the bones from falling apart during movement. And here, it's very important to understand a key point that for some reason everyone overlooks. For example, many people go to stretching classes or do some kind of stretching exercises and think that they are stretching their ligaments. In reality, let me tell you a secret. Ligaments are not an elastic structure. Ligaments are a rigid structure. They can withstand up to 600 kilograms of tension. In other words, to tear a ligament, it has to be a direct blow, an injury, an accident, something like that. Or there's a second scenario. Why else might tendons get torn? That's when you have a very poor diet. The ligaments become very weak and technically their structure becomes, almost like something half rotten. You just give a little puff or make a small movement and it tears off. But overall, for a healthy person with a healthy body, it's impossible to tear a ligament. Even if there's some kind of injury or accident, usually the bone breaks at the point where the ligament attaches. The ligament tears off together with a small piece of bone. I mean, that's actual statistics. In other words, you can cut through a ligament with an axe, but this is just so you understand the structure of the body. So look, here are the bones, and they are connected by ligaments. These ligaments are rigid so that you don't get a dislocation with every movement. In other words, they're not elastic. Otherwise, you really would get dislocations. And the next structure is the muscles, which are elastic. And it is specifically the muscles that can affect a woman in terms of supporting the body during pregnancy. Let me explain why. So when I got pregnant, or when any woman gets pregnant, hormones start to be released. The hormonal system is designed so that the amount of hormones gradually increases by the time of childbirth. That is, by the 9th month of pregnancy, so that when a woman gives birth, the hormones are at their peak. So the hormonal system, I won't talk about all the hormones. Right now, we'll focus on hormones specifically in relation to the musculoskeletal system, meaning the bones. There is a hormone released called a myorelaxant, or relaxin, as it is generally known. In fact, the name isn't important. What's important is the function it performs. So this relaxin softens the ligaments and tendons. Their structure becomes softer and looser. so that the pelvic bones can separate during pregnancy, allowing the baby to pass naturally through the birth canal. And naturally, the hormone cannot act only locally and only on the pelvis. Of course, it relaxes the entire musculoskeletal structure of the body globally. That is, all the ligaments become lax. This is exactly why during pregnancy, many women notice that their foot size increases. They notice that, you used to be, 18, 20, so lean, like an antelope. And now, even though you seem to be doing something, you you turn into a jellyfish. Well, this is actually absolutely normal. And this jellyfish-like state can, let's say, only be held together by your muscles. Because at this moment, the ligaments physically and physiologically cannot perform their function. That's just how women and the female body are designed. Girls, as you can see, all the mistakes I made during my first pregnancies in my 20s were simply out of ignorance. All of this can, in my honest opinion, be avoided. I have dedicated my entire conscious life to dedicated study and research on how to get rid of this and how to make absolutely sure it doesn't happen at all. That's why there's a link in the description below this video to a secret women's chat where we discuss all these issues. In the near future, there will be live streams there and a lot of interesting information about how to get rid of your belly after childbirth, how to restore sensitivity during intimacy, how to get your orgasms back, and how to stop feeling pain during your cycle. In short, there's a lot there, and it's just for girls. So go check it out. See you there. Bye. What do people usually do? A woman goes, for example, to the gym, She wants toned arms, toned legs, thinks about her butt, and starts specifically working out her arms, legs, back, and so on. Even during pregnancy, a lot of people, this is actually mistake number one. Almost 100% of pregnant women who have never done sports, when they suddenly get pregnant, they have this moment. Bam, I'm going to look bad. She's like, no, I urgently need to do something. And she just rushes off to the gym. And she starts, without any understanding of how the female body works, she starts working herself out. And look, I've already mentioned this, right? Ligaments can't hold our structure together, meaning the body as a whole is slack. And onto this slack body, so the ligaments are already stretched and the body starts to sag. We start adding more weight to it, the weight of the baby and the weight of the muscles. Legs, arms, butt. Well, I'll skip over the fact that overall you just want to sleep. You're sluggish, you're kind of forcing yourself, you're dragging things around. And on top of all that, you've added even more extra loads of muscle weight to this already super relaxed, slack body. And everything that happens to your body only makes this sluggish state even worse. Not just sluggish, it compresses you even more and turns you into even more of a jellyfish. Because in fact, you really don't need to work with the outer muscles, with all of that at all. I mean, you really don't need to at all. All a woman really needs to do is actually work with her muscles. This is essential. There's absolutely no way around it. But you need to work with the muscles that can at least somehow support your inner core. That is, these are the deep muscles, the muscles along the spine, like the multifidus, the abdominal muscles, and the respiratory system. In other words, the connection between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor. And all of this needs to work together as a whole. But specifically, once again, the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, slightly activating the transverse abdominal muscle and the multifidus along the spine. This will bring you together and you'll become more centered. And there's no need for any of those external braces that would put extra strain on this entire structure. Because once again, muscles are not meant to hold the body in place. Muscles are engines. It's important to understand that. They don't hold, they move. On a global level, it's our bones that support us, right? The rigid structure, ligaments, and deep postural muscles, which can also be called stabilizer muscles. Those are the ones you need to work with, and that's it. And honestly, it doesn't take much time. You just specifically understand what to do. And You save a huge amount of energy because during pregnancy, you really don't have a lot of it to spare. First of all, you'll save energy because you didn't go to the gym, you didn't do a workout. Secondly, you'll save energy. Extra muscles require constant maintenance to keep them in shape. But in reality, they just make your situation more complicated right now. That's why you need to work out correctly. Girls, young women, mothers, if you have interesting or helpful stories about how you recovered, how you got back to yourself after giving birth, share them in the comments. It will definitely be useful to someone, perhaps even someone you know. And besides all of that, I'll personally reward the most interesting story. I'll give you a detailed course all about the female body and recovery. So write, like, share, and subscribe. It's just awesome. I adore you all. Be as active as possible on my page. I will always be grateful to those who are with me